Alright, this video will contain all my current thoughts, speculation, theories, hopes, dreams, everything for Breath of the Wild, the sequel. Naturally, this video is going to be pretty long, so grab yourself a snack, cold beverage, sit back, and relax. Going forward, there are some points of reference that I will keep going back to, so let's get these out of the way first. There were several interviews with Aonuma during E3 that either outright confirm or heavily point to certain things. From these interviews, we get the following facts and assumptions. First, we know that we will be returning to Hyrule in some capacity, especially since this game started as a DLC for the first game. So from that, I'm assuming that Breath of the Wild 2 will take place after the events of the first game. Now, the only direct sequels we know in Zelda are Majora's Mask and Phantom Hourglass. Also Zelda 2 I think, but it's been a long time since I've last played it, so you guys can correct me there if I'm wrong, but really out of all these, Majora's Mask is the only one that is a good comparison to use, because Zelda 2 is super old and Phantom Hourglass was a DS game, and I love that game. I'm not putting it down and all, it's just that was a DS game. So really, Majora's Mask is the best point of reference, and I'm going to be talking about Majora's Mask a lot going forward. It's also heavily implied from these interviews that there will be some multiplayer aspect. This isn't any new info either, because Aonuma has been saying for years that he wants to make a multiplayer Zelda game. Plus, in these interviews, he does the whole "we can't say" PR thing, which basically just means, yes, there will be multiple playable characters. We also know that Monolith Soft has a dedicated team to work on the next Zelda game. We also know from these interviews that Red Dead Redemption 2 was used as inspiration in much the same way that Skyrim was for the first game. So naturally, some of those aspects will be implemented into the sequel. So there are all the assumptions and facts I will be referencing in this video. So now let's look at all the aspects of the game. As far as graphics go, we've already seen it quite a bit in the trailer. So it's going to be the same art style as Breath of the Wild, which is fine. I hope they make the game 1080p at least instead of 900p, which I think that was what the first game's resolution was, and also maybe add some more detail to the character models and textures, because some of the textures on the mountains and stuff are not necessarily all that detailed. From Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask, the graphics were very much unchanged, but that sequel only took about a year to develop, and for Breath of the Wild 2, they will also be reusing assets, but they have had a much longer development time already, even if the game comes out early by Zelda standards. I mean, this game's looking to be coming out 3 to 4 years post Breath of the Wild, so I really hope they do a bit more work on, the character models and things. I think underwater exploration will be a thing, and you will still be able to climb. Riding horses will return, and if the Sheikah Towers or shrines aren't prevalent in this game, I hope to see fast travel be implemented with a new musical instrument. This new instrument will allow us to learn songs to manipulate the weather, find hidden objects, and warp to towns we visited, much in the same way other Zelda instruments have worked in the past. We know from the interviews that we are indeed returning to Hyrule in some fashion, but I believe there will still be a bunch of new land to explore. Whether that be a whole underground area, an adjacent land, or even the Twilight Realm, who knows? But we do see the ground shake beneath the castle in the trailer, which points to Zelda and Link being underneath it, but who knows? The way the ruins look, it could be out in the desert, or maybe in the canyon. From my trailer analysis video, XAK Attack had this to say: "If we get an underground labyrinth to explore, I want something like Blackreach from Skyrim, or maybe an ancient Sheikah civilization lost to time, like the dwarves in the Elder Scrolls series." I really like this idea, and I believe the Sheikah, the Zonai, Gerudo, the Twilight, some ancient power has been lost to time beneath Hyrule. Maybe the labyrinth runs underneath Hyrule and the Tanagar Canyon, and leads out to an area beyond Hyrule that we get to explore. It's impossible to know, but I strongly feel like they aren't just going to rehash Hyrule to us. Expect new land to be explorable, and even old lands we do get to visit to at least feel new in some ways. I don't think they'd ever just go the route of a copy and paste. Weapon breaking is here to stay, but I expect minor tweaks to the overall system. Expect more weapons that are like the Master Sword and don't really break, but rather regenerate. They can also completely scrap what they have and go with the route of Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. That game had weapons that would deteriorate on use, and the more damaged they were, the less effective they would be. They could be repaired with tools, or you could pay to have them fixed. As for combat, it's going to have a lot more variety because I believe there will be more playable characters. I think Hyrule Warriors is a good reference point to get ideas for weapons that these Zelda characters could have, but more on that later. So more key items and weapons will return that would function much like the Master Sword does, so this will also change up the combat a lot. I fully believe we will see more enemy types too, so I'm picturing more old school Zelda combat like Twilight Princess, any of the older 3D Zelda games. Yes, there will still be the big open world like battles with enemies just running at you from all directions, but there will also be battles that are more 1v1 focused, which will require special key items like the hookshot, the whip, the beetle, the gust bellows, the spinner, etc. These could be used for these more 1v1 battles or bosses. I mean, you aren't going to be able to stand out in Hyrule Field trying to aim the hookshot when there's 10 bokoblins chasing after you. You're gonna have a bad time. This will also help so these key items aren't so OP outside of these like 1v1 fights. Think about the Colosseum. You fight the Lionel in there and it's contained. So once all the enemies are taken care of on the outside, it's just you 1v1 in that area. So nothing can really come in from any of the sides and flank you. So it's more 1v1 fight. So think that. I think there'll be more focus on some of those type battles. I'm not sure if they could pull anything from Red Dead Redemption 2 here, but obviously we're not going to see Link and Zelda riding on a motorcycle with guns, right? Now this is really where the Red Dead Redemption stuff starts coming in. Crafting. Expect a more fleshed out crafting system in this game. That was a big problem in Breath of the Wild, was that we had so many items and everything was there for a crafting system, but we couldn't really do anything. Cooking was pretty good, but you couldn't craft any weapons, couldn't craft any armor, or much of anything else. Think about what this could open up for the game. Basically a more heavy RPG Zelda game. In Red Dead Redemption 2, you could craft ammunition types, get legendary items for power-ups from strong animals, and what if we had that in Breath of the Wild? You could craft your own arrows, craft your own clothes out of animal pelt, and expand on your elixirs and food a bit more. Enemies like the Talos, the Hinoxes, the Moldugas could give you rare parts for more advanced elixirs. Maybe there just needs to be more like gold versions of enemies because there weren't really any in like the main game. At least I don't think there was. I mean, I know there was like the silver Lionels and things, but I don't know if there was gold. So that's like a perfect example. They could have a few gold versions of these enemies on the map. I think we will also see fishing return to Zelda, so you'll be able to craft, you know, different baits and lures, which we've had different lures in the past, so this isn't, again, anything new. Fishing has been around in Zelda for a long time, so I think it's finally going to make a return here. Special items will return, potentially hook shots, claw shots, the Dominion Rod, anything like that. I also expect some concepts from Skyward Sword to return. In that game, there were special items, but you could also enchant or upgrade them using materials. You could also infuse potions and make them stronger, so just think of a fully realized crafting system in this game. Not to mention that I'm sure there will be more crafting of armor and things as well. You know, Majora's Mask had masks that granted many different abilities, and in Red Dead Redemption 2 you could craft different augments for weapons. To this effect, I expect something in this game that will allow us to use special moves, or just maybe more tools in our disposal in the Sheikah Slate. Shrines will return, quests will be more substantial. Some people don't want dungeons because they want something new, but they can still take another spin at making a more modern approach to dungeons. We already have shrines, which are fine, but what about things that have more to do? They can still have things similar to like the Master Sword Trials, the Champion's Ballad Final Dungeon, or even Eventide Island, because that would be more like an in-world dungeon, like a seamless transition. Eventide is a great example because it would still feel like a new take on dungeons, just like shrines were too. I think they also missed out on having some area in the sky and something underwater like the temples in Twilight Princess. Think about a temple in the sky that utilized Revali's Gale more, or Mipha giving you some underwater attack or something to use in some underwater temple. Expect quests to take inspiration from Red Dead 2. There's going to be a lot more quests in this game, and they will be more integral to the world building. You're going to help people out more than once, and you're going to see them throughout the game, just like in Red Dead 2. Tarrytown is a beautiful example. That was one of my favorite quests in the game because you get to meet people you helped later on and even create an entire town. You actually help improve all their lives, and it makes those characters some of the more memorable NPCs in the game. Also think back to Majora's Mask and the Bomber's Notebook. Everyone had a schedule and you had to do things at certain times to trigger certain events. Some were super easy and some took the entire 3-day game cycle to complete. And if you messed up during the middle of that, you had to start all over. Looking at you, K-Fi and Anju. So more in-depth quests and a way to track them is the big takeaway here. Okay, so now we're getting into lots of theory, and I hope it makes sense, but now we're talking about story and characters, my favorite part. So we must start back to the war 10,000 years ago. So here Impa even uses quotes around legend and mentions the conflicts faded into memory. To me, this means that the legend that she recalls has been made fuzzy over time, so the details have probably gotten mixed up. I'm in the camp of the convergence timeline theory, so basically anything is up for grabs in terms of story and lore. Especially because we know that even Impa's telling of this has become hazy, so she's not even sure that necessarily everything she's saying is true. Hyrule was in an era of prosperity, something that only would happen when all Triforce pieces are joined together. In Ocarina of Time, Zelda explains the Triforce as follows. If someone with a righteous heart makes a wish, it will lead Hyrule to a golden age of prosperity. So we know it was a very prosperous time in the land of Hyrule, so seemingly the Triforce wasn't split. And the one thing that would last over time, if anything, wouldn't be word of mouth, but would be the tapestry that depicted the history of the Great Calamity Ganon. And if we look at it further and zoom in, is this picture Ganondorf, or is it Link? Because it has long red hair, a pig-like nose, so I don't know. And if we look at Zelda, she does not have a pig-like nose. So, obviously if it was Link, I would imagine that he would look similar to, Zelda, not closer to Ganondorf. So maybe it's not Link, but it's actually Ganondorf who saved the world from the Calamity Ganon 10,000 years ago. Sir Bannon also pointed out in the trailer that Ganondorf is riding on horseback wielding his trident, and it shows the Gerudo symbol on the back of his armor. So we know that Ganondorf was riding into battle and someone carved it on the cave walls around where he was sealed, or seemingly buried, or whatever state he is in the trailer. So let's back up a bit. We know that Calamity Ganon was formed when it gave up its human form, Ganondorf. What this means is that the bloodline would then be broken and new male kings of the Gerudo could be born without containing the spirit of Ganon. So what I think is that the whole kingdom of Hyrule, they all fought valiantly to contain Ganon, but they couldn't 10,000 years ago. And as a last-ditch effort, I think Ganondorf was actually the one who decided to give up his body so they could attempt to seal Ganon back into him. And it worked for a while, but then this would bring us up to 100 years ago when the Calamity breaks free of this seal. And in present day, we fight him, we defeat him, and after we beat him, this malice returns back to Ganondorf because Ganon doesn't have enough power to hold that form anymore, and that's the only way he can survive and regenerate his power. So then we also know that Link and Zelda, after the end game, set out to help Hyrule, at the end of Breath of the Wild. I believe in the trailer we see them stumble upon these ruins just as the seal is starting to break again, so it could be just a few years later. We see Ganon's malice consuming the room at the end of the trailer, meaning the seal has been broken and now Ganon has once again been separated from the body of Ganondorf. This wouldn't be the first time seals or bonds have been broken in the Zelda series. Obviously the imprisoned or demise, that seal was broken several times actually in the game, and you had to reseal it a bunch of times, which was really annoying, but anyway. And so to this effect, yeah, Ganondorf will return, but not in the way we think. There will be a brand new villain altogether. Calamity Ganon will actually take a hold of another being in a similar fashion that Majora's Mask took a hold of the Skull Kid. We know the text translation from the magic swirling of the hand covering Ganondorf's chest translates to, "Forgive me, God, seal Ganon." Seemingly the magic points more towards Twilight rather than Sheikah because of like the turquoise hue color instead of blue. It also feels more like a sacrifice rather than you know, like we must kill Ganondorf, or like an execution, you know, like in Twilight Princess. So this really points more towards Ganondorf being good rather than evil. The body isn't chained down in any way either. If you play the trailer backwards, you can hear chanting or singing. And what I hear in the trailer is, "Oh my God, forgive me, God seal Ganon." Again, this is pointing to some mistake, as in they didn't want to do this to Ganondorf, but they didn't have a choice and they feel sorry for it. So what I am thinking here is that we finally see a good Ganondorf. Not only will Link and Zelda be playable, but so will, you guessed it, Ganondorf. Now this might feel like a stretch, but I don't think so. We know Ganon obviously is pure evil, but the lines for Ganondorf have not always been so black and white. Wind Waker is one example where I actually felt sorry for him, but then, you know, we gruesomely murder him at the end of the game. But in this ending cutscene and dialogue between Ganondorf and the King of Hyrule, you really see everything from a different perspective than we do in Ocarina of Time. We see a broken down, desperate king doing everything in his power to help his poor people and their desolate and harsh life in the Gerudo Desert. Could we not say the same thing of the Hylian people as they prayed to the gods and the gods flooded their whole civilization and they probably ended up killing tons of innocent people just to save a few or just stop this Ganondorf from, you know, running amok? You know, Ganondorf isn't so different from the King of Hyrule. So Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf set out together for the first time in the Zelda series as the three Triforce chosen ones to defeat a new evil, all as playable characters. Yeah, seems crazy, but that's my theory and I'm sticking to it. But if that's the case, what is the new evil going to be? Well, I think it's going to again be very similar to Majora's Mask. I think this Ganon Malice will go on to infect and control another life being or force in Hyrule, but who? I really don't know. Could be a Sheikah Master, maybe Impa. Honestly, I have no idea, but I imagine it'll be a brand new character who probably won't even hail from Hyrule, but from a distant land that we probably will be able to visit. This also begs the question of what the hand is. Could it be Zant? Midna? I'm not sure, but someone is attempting to contain Ganon and fails to do so. Now that the Twilight people are in the game, how and why are they there? I don't know. We know Ganondorf and the Twilight people were supposedly sealed in the Twilight Realm when the mirror was shattered, but I don't know. Who knows? So, there's my theories, guys. What do you think? Here is a summary of what we talked about. So, Breath of the Wild had some missed potential. Expect the sequel to take the new gameplay mechanics that were introduced and expand upon them. Climbing, horses, underwater exploration in the same Hyrule, and also in new underground areas and adjacent lands. Weapon breaking is here to stay. Expect the system to be tweaked. Key items and weapons return and a more fully realized crafting system. Shrines will return, but expect more open world like dungeons that are more substantial. More fleshed out quests and a tracking system. Ganondorf, Zelda, and Link team up to fight a new evil, all as playable characters. One final hope that I want to add to this is that I want all characters to be fully voice acted. Witcher 3 has it, and that's coming to Switch. Skyrim basically has it. Games do it. I want it. I want full voice acting in the next Zelda game. If you guys watched my Breath of the Wild discussion video, you know I thought the game had some missed potential. I fully expect this sequel to be everything we loved about the first game, but expanded upon and fully realized. If this is true, guys, we are looking at the best Zelda game ever, because most people praise Breath of the Wild as the best Zelda game, but damn, if all of this were to come true, it would be insane. But guys, I want to know what your thoughts are. I want you guys to poke holes in my theories. I want you to give me your own theories. I want to have discussions about this in the comment section below. So let me know what you think. Like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.